The rain was coming down hard that Tuesday evening. Maya pulled her thin jacket tighter as she walked up the stairs to her apartment building. Her feet hurt from standing all day at the restaurant, and her clothes smelled like cooking oil and dish soap. She'd worked a double shift again. 16 hours of taking orders, carrying heavy trays, and forcing smiles at customers who barely looked at her. All Maya wanted was to get inside, take a hot shower, and maybe eat some leftover noodles before collapsing into bed. She had another early shift tomorrow at 5 in the morning. The thought made her tired bones feel even heavier. As she reached the third-floor landing, she noticed two people standing near the stairwell. They looked completely out of place in her run-down building. There was a man, probably in his late 30s, wearing an expensive-looking coat that was now soaked through. Next to him stood an older woman, maybe in her 60s, shivering despite the thick scarf wrapped around her shoulders. Maya slowed down. Something felt off. These people didn't belong here. Their shoes alone probably cost more than her entire month's rent. The man looked up as she approached. His eyes were kind but worried. "Excuse me," he said, his voice polite and gentle. "I'm so sorry to bother you. Our car broke down about 2 blocks from here. We've been trying to call for a tow truck, but with this storm nobody can come until tomorrow morning." The older woman coughed, a deep rattling sound that made Maya wince. The woman's lips had a slight blue tint and she was shaking badly. "We tried every hotel nearby," the man continued. "Everything is completely booked. There's some big conference in town. The receptionist at the last place suggested we try to find a shelter, but..." He glanced at his mother with concern. "I don't think she can handle walking anymore in this weather." Maya stood there dripping wet, exhausted to her core. Every logical part of her brain screamed at her to just go inside and mind her own business. She lived in a tiny one-bedroom apartment. She barely had enough food for herself. She didn't know these people. This could be some kind of trick or scam. But then the older woman looked at her and Maya saw something in those tired eyes. It was the same look her own grandmother had when she was sick and trying to be brave about it. "Come on," Maya heard herself say before she could think twice. "You can stay at my place for the night." The man's eyes widened. "Oh no, we couldn't possibly. Your mother is freezing," Maya interrupted, unlocking her door. "And it's not safe out here. Come inside before you both catch pneumonia." She pushed open the door to her small apartment. Maya felt a wave of embarrassment wash over her as they stepped inside. The place was cramped and shabby. The paint on the walls was peeling in several spots. Her second-hand couch had a blanket thrown over it to hide the worn patches. The tiny kitchen was barely big enough for one person to stand in, but it was warm, and it was dry. "I'm David," the man said, helping his mother sit down on the couch. "And this is my mother, Helen." "Maya," she replied, already moving toward the small closet where she kept her extra blankets. She only had 2, but she pulled them both out. "Let me get you something warm." Helen looked up at her with watery eyes. "Thank you, dear. You don't know how much this means." Maya brought the blankets and then disappeared into the kitchen. She put a pot of water on the stove to make tea. It was the cheap kind, nothing fancy, but it would warm them up. As the water heated, she opened her tiny refrigerator and stared at its contents. Half a container of leftover rice, some vegetables that were starting to look sad, 3 eggs, a small piece of chicken she'd been saving for tomorrow. She sighed and pulled everything out. These people needed food more than she did right now. She could always pick up extra crackers from the restaurant tomorrow. 20 minutes later, Maya carried 3 plates into the living room. The meal was simple. Fried rice with vegetables and small pieces of chicken mixed in. She'd scrambled the eggs and added them too. It wasn't much, but it was hot and filling. "I'm sorry it's not more fancy," Maya said, handing them each a plate. "This is pretty much everything I had." David stared at his plate, then at Maya. Something shifted in his expression, but she couldn't quite read it. "This is very kind of you," he said quietly. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. The rain continued to pound against the windows. Maya was glad she'd brought them inside. Nobody should be out in weather like this. "So what brings you to this part of town?" Maya asked, trying to make conversation. David glanced at his mother before answering. "We were visiting an old friend in the area. The car just suddenly died on us on the way back." "These modern cars," Helen added with a weak smile. "Give me an old reliable station wagon any day." Maya laughed. "My grandmother says the same thing. She still has this ancient truck from the 90s that refuses to die." "You're close with your grandmother?" Helen asked. Very close, Maya said, her voice softening. She raised me after my parents passed away. She's back in my hometown now. I send her money when I can to help with her medical bills. That must be difficult, David said. Working and supporting family from far away. Maya shrugged. You do what you have to do, right? She took care of me my whole life. Now it's my turn to take care of her. She stood up to collect the empty plates. You two should get some rest. I'll take the bedroom. You can have the couch and I'll make a sleeping spot on the floor with some cushions. Absolutely not, David protested. You've already done so much. We'll be fine on the floor. Your mother needs the couch, Maya said firmly, and you're too tall to fit comfortably on the floor. I'm small. I'll be fine. Before David could argue further, Maya had already started pulling cushions off the armchair and arranging them on the floor with a blanket. She disappeared into the bedroom and came back with her pillow. Bathroom is through that door, she pointed. Towels are in the cabinet if you want to dry off properly. I have to be up at 4:30 for work, so I'll try to be quiet in the morning. Helen reached out and took Maya's hand. Her grip was weak but warm. You're an angel, dear. A real angel. Maya felt her cheeks heat up. It's nothing, really. Anyone would do the same. No, David said, and there was something intense in his voice. Not everyone would. Maya didn't know what to say to that, so she just smiled and wished them good night. As she lay down on her makeshift floor bed, she could hear them whispering to each other in the living room. She gave us all her food, Helen was saying. I know, David replied, his voice thick with emotion. She has almost nothing, and she gave us everything. Maya closed her eyes, too tired to think about it anymore. Her body ached from the long day, and sleep came quickly despite the hard floor beneath her. In the living room, David sat awake for a long time, staring at the peeling paint on the ceiling. His mind was racing. This young woman had opened her home to complete strangers without hesitation. She'd fed them her last meal. She'd given up her bed, and she'd done it all without expecting anything in return. He thought about his own life, his massive house with rooms he never entered, his garage full of expensive cars, his closet stuffed with clothes he'd never wear. When was the last time he'd done something truly selfless? When was the last time anyone in his circle had shown this kind of pure, uncomplicated kindness? David looked over at his mother, now sleeping peacefully on the couch, wrapped in Maya's worn blankets. Then he looked toward the closed bedroom door, behind which their host was probably already asleep, ready to wake up in a few hours to do it all over again. Something shifted in his chest. A decision was forming, though he didn't quite know what it was yet. All he knew was that meeting Maya tonight had changed something fundamental in him, and he wasn't going to forget it. Maya woke up to the sound of something sizzling in her kitchen. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The hard floor beneath her reminded her quickly enough. Her back ached as she sat up, rubbing her eyes. The smell of food cooking made her stomach growl. She glanced at her phone. 6:15 in the morning. She'd overslept by almost 2 hours. Panic shot through her as she scrambled to her feet. Good morning, David called from the kitchen doorway. He was wearing the same clothes from last night, but he looked refreshed somehow. I hope you don't mind. I found some eggs and bread. Thought I'd make breakfast. Maya rushed past him, her mind racing. I'm so late for work. I was supposed to be there at 5. She grabbed her phone and called the restaurant. Her manager picked up on the third ring, and Maya could already hear the irritation in his voice. She apologized repeatedly, explained about oversleeping, promised it would never happen again. When she hung up, her hands were shaking. Everything okay? Helen asked from the couch. She looked much better than last night. Her color had returned and she wasn't shivering anymore. Yeah, I can't afford to lose this job, Maya said, running a hand through her messy hair. I need to get ready. At least eat something first, David said, holding out a plate. You gave us dinner last night. Let us give you breakfast. Maya wanted to refuse, to rush out the door, but the smell was too good. She took the plate and ate quickly, standing up. The scrambled eggs were perfectly cooked, much better than anything she usually made for herself. Thank you, she said between bites. And thank you for letting me sleep in. I never sleep past my alarm. You were exhausted, Helen said gently. Your body needed the rest. Maya finished eating, grabbed her work uniform from the bedroom, and changed in record time. When she came out, David was washing the dishes. The tow truck should be here around noon, he said. We'll be out of your hair soon. Take your time, Maya said, already heading for the door. Just pull the door closed when you leave. It locks automatically. She was halfway down the stairs when she realized she'd forgotten to feel awkward about leaving two strangers alone in her apartment. But something about them felt safe, trustworthy. Work was brutal. Her manager made sure she knew how disappointed he was, giving her the worst tables and the messiest cleanup duties. Maya took it all without complaint. She couldn't afford to make him angrier. During her break, she sat in the back alley eating a stale roll she'd saved from the breakfast rush. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello, Maya? It's David, from this morning. Oh, hi. Did the tow truck come? Well, that's the thing, David said, and she could hear something in his voice. Hesitation, maybe. The part they need won't arrive until Friday. That's 3 more days. Maya's heart sank a little. 3 more days of sleeping on the floor. 3 more days of sharing her tiny space. But then she thought about Helen's grateful smile and David's kind eyes. That's fine, she heard herself say. You can stay. Are you sure? We could find a hotel. The conference will be over tomorrow. Your mother shouldn't be moving around so much, Maya said. Besides, it's already set up. Just stay. There was a pause. Thank you, Maya, really. And listen, I'd like to cook dinner tonight. To thank you properly. You don't have to. I want to, David interrupted. What time do you get home? Around 7, Maya said. But don't buy anything expensive. I can't. Don't worry about it, David said quickly. Just come home to a hot meal. You deserve it. When Maya finally got home that night, exhausted and smelling like grease, she opened the door to find her apartment transformed. Well, not transformed exactly. It was still small and shabby, but it was clean. Really clean. The floors had been mopped. The windows were sparkling. Even the peeling paint seemed less noticeable somehow. Helen was sitting on the couch folding Maya's laundry. Clean laundry. Maya hadn't had time to wash clothes in over a week. Oh, honey, you're home, Helen said, smiling warmly. David's just finishing up dinner. Maya stood frozen in the doorway. You didn't have to do all this. Nonsense, Helen said. You're letting us stay here. The least we can do is help out a bit. David emerged from the kitchen carrying 3 plates. The food looked incredible. Real chicken, roasted vegetables, rice that wasn't instant. Maya's eyes started to water. Hey, what's wrong? David asked, concerned. Nothing, Maya said, wiping her eyes quickly. Nobody's ever done something like this for me before. They ate dinner together and it felt strangely normal, like they'd known each other for years instead of just one day. Helen told stories about raising David, about how stubborn he was as a child. David rolled his eyes but smiled, adding his own embarrassing details. What about you, Maya? Helen asked. Tell us about yourself, so Maya did. She talked about growing up with her grandmother in a small town, about losing her parents in a car accident when she was 12, about moving to the city with big dreams of going to college, only to realize how expensive everything was. I'm saving up, she explained, for community college. I want to study social work. Help people who are going through hard times, you know? But between rent and sending money home for my grandmother's medicine, it's slow going. David had gone quiet, listening intently. That's a noble goal, he said softly. It's just what feels right, Maya said with a shrug. My grandmother always told me that the best way to honor the help you've received is to help others. The next morning, Maya woke up early again. This time on purpose. But when she got to the kitchen, David was already there, coffee made. You don't have to keep doing this, Maya said, accepting the mug gratefully. I know, David replied, but I want to. Besides, I'm an early riser too. Always have been. They sat together in comfortable silence, drinking coffee as the sun came up. It was peaceful. Maya couldn't remember the last time her mornings felt peaceful instead of frantic. Can I ask you something? David said after a while. Sure. Why did you help us? That first night. You didn't know us. We could have been anyone. Maya thought about it. My grandmother used to say that kindness is never wasted. Even if someone takes advantage of you, the act of being kind still matters. It still means something. She paused. Plus, your mother looked so cold. I couldn't just walk past that. David stared into his coffee mug. The world needs more people like you. The world needs more people who care, Maya corrected. I'm nothing special. I disagree, David said, meeting her eyes. I think you're very special. Maya felt her cheeks warm. She stood up quickly. I should get ready for work. That day at the restaurant, Maya found herself smiling more. Even when customers were rude, even when her feet hurt. She kept thinking about the hot meal waiting for her at home, about Helen's kind face and David's quiet presence. It was strange having people in her space, but it was also nice. The apartment didn't feel so empty anymore. When she got home, there was music playing softly. Helen was teaching David how to fold fitted sheets properly, and they were both laughing. Maya stood in the doorway watching them, feeling something warm spread through her chest. This was what a home felt like. Not just a place to sleep, but a place filled with life and laughter. "Maya," Helen called out. "Come settle this. David insists there's a right way to fold these impossible sheets." Maya laughed and joined them, and for a little while she forgot about her money problems, her exhausting job, her tiny apartment. For a little while she just felt happy. That night after dinner, David helped her wash dishes while Helen dozed on the couch. The conversation flowed easily, moving from topic to topic. David asked about her dreams, really asked, like he genuinely wanted to know, and Maya found herself sharing things she rarely talked about. "Do you ever worry you won't make it?" David asked quietly. "That the dream is too big?" "Every single day," Maya admitted. "But giving up feels worse than struggling. At least when I'm struggling, I'm still moving forward." David nodded slowly. "That's a good way to look at it." As Maya lay on her floorbed that night, listening to David and Helen's quiet breathing, she thought about how strange life was. 3 days ago, she'd been alone, just grinding through each day. Now her small apartment held 3 people, and somehow it felt less crowded than before. She didn't know that David hadn't slept yet, that he was lying awake on the couch, his mind racing with plans. He'd made a decision. He just needed to figure out how to execute it without scaring Maya away. Everything was about to change. Maya just didn't know it yet. Friday morning came too quickly. Maya knew today was the day David and Helen would leave. The car part had finally arrived, and the mechanic was fixing everything that afternoon. She should have felt relieved. Her apartment would be hers again. She could sleep in her own bed. But instead, she felt a strange heaviness in her chest. "You've been awfully quiet this morning," Helen said, sipping the tea Maya had made. "Just tired." Maya lied. The truth was, she'd gotten used to their presence, to coming home to warm food and friendly faces, to not being alone. David came out of the bathroom, his bag already packed. "Maya, I wanted to thank you properly before we go. What you did for us, letting complete strangers into your home, it's extraordinary." Maya shook her head. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," David said firmly. "They wouldn't have. Trust me on that." He pulled out his wallet, and Maya's stomach dropped. She knew what was coming. "Please let me give you something," David said, holding out several bills. "For the food, the space, everything." "No," Maya said, stepping back. "I didn't help you for money." "I know that," David said gently. "But you have expenses. Your grandmother's medical bills, your college savings. Let me help." "I don't need charity," Maya said, and she heard the edge in her own voice. "I'm doing fine on my own." It wasn't true, and they all knew it. But Maya had her pride. It was one of the few things she had left. Helen stood up and walked over to Maya. She took both of Maya's hands in hers. "Dear, accepting help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. You've helped us." "Why can't we help you?" "Because I'm supposed to be the one helping people," Maya said quietly. "That's what I do. That's who I am. And who helps the helpers?" Helen asked softly. Maya didn't have an answer for that. Helen squeezed her hands and smiled. "Think about it, sweetheart. Our number is on the counter. Call us if you need anything. Anything at all." 2 hours later, they were gone. The apartment felt enormous and empty. Maya sat on her couch in the spot where Helen had spent 3 nights and tried not to cry. The weekend passed slowly. Maya worked her shifts, came home to silence, ate instant noodles alone. It was like the past few days had been a dream. Monday morning, Maya woke up to her alarm blaring. Another week, another endless cycle of work and exhaustion. She dragged herself out of bed and found an envelope that had been slipped under her door. Inside was a letter, handwritten in neat script, and a business card. The letter was from Helen. It talked about how much their stay had meant to her, how Maya had restored her faith that good people still existed in the world. At the bottom, Helen had written, "The world is better because you're in it. Don't ever forget that." Maya held the letter to her chest, tears finally falling. She looked at the business card. David Patterson, CEO, Patterson Industries. Her blood ran cold. Patterson Industries. The tech company. The billion-dollar corporation that was always in the news. She grabbed her phone and searched for David's name. There he was. David Patterson, one of the youngest CEOs in the country, worth more money than Maya could even imagine. And she'd let him sleep on her couch. She'd fed him instant rice and vegetables. Maya felt sick. This whole time he'd been lying to her, playing some kind of game. Was this how rich people entertained themselves? Pretending to be normal? She looked at her apartment with new eyes. He must have thought it was pathetic. Her shabby furniture, her peeling paint, her secondhand everything. The anger built slowly, then all at once. She grabbed the business card and shoved it in her drawer, slamming it shut. The next 2 weeks were hard. Maya worked extra shifts trying to save up more money. Her landlord had given her notice that the building was being sold. She had 60 days to find a new place. Every apartment she looked at was either too expensive or in terrible condition. Then her grandmother called. The medical bills were piling up again. The treatments weren't working as well as they'd hoped. They needed to try something different, something more expensive. Maya sat on her couch that night, calculator in hand, trying to make the numbers work. They didn't. No matter how she added it up, there wasn't enough money. She thought about David's offer, about the bills he'd tried to give her. She thought about Helen's words. Who helps the helpers? But asking for help felt like failing, like admitting she couldn't do it on her own. Wednesday afternoon, Maya was cleaning tables when her manager called her over. "There's someone here asking for you," he said, looking annoyed. "Make it quick." Maya walked to the front of the restaurant and froze. David was standing there, wearing an expensive suit, looking completely out of place among the plastic chairs and sticky tables. "What are you doing here?" Maya asked, her voice cold. "I needed to see you," David said. "You haven't returned any of my mother's calls. I've been busy. Maya, please. Can we talk? Just for a few minutes?" Maya glanced at her manager, who was watching them with narrowed eyes. "Fine, but not here. My break is in an hour. There's a park 2 blocks down." David nodded. "I'll wait." The hour dragged by. Maya's mind raced with everything she wanted to say. How dare he lie to her? How dare he come to her workplace? How dare he make her feel small? When she finally got to the park, David was sitting on a bench looking nervous. She'd never seen him look nervous before. "You lied to me," Maya said, standing with her arms crossed. "You let me think you were just some regular person." "I didn't lie," David said carefully. "I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing, is it?" David stood up. "Maya, when was the last time someone treated me like a normal person? When was the last time someone helped me without wanting something in return? You have no idea what my life is like. Everyone wants something. Everyone has an angle. So what, you were testing me?" Maya's voice rose. "Seeing if the poor girl was genuine enough for your standards?" "No," David said, his voice rough. "I was remembering what it felt like to be human. You reminded me of why I started my company in the first place. Before the money, before the fame, I wanted to help people. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that." Maya's anger wavered. "Why are you really here, David?" "Because my mother is worried about you. Because I'm worried about you. And because I have a proposition. I don't want your money." "It's not about money," David said. "It's about a job." Maya stared at him. "A job?" "Patterson Industries is starting a new community outreach program. We need someone to run it. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle. Someone who actually cares about helping people. Not just looking good in press releases." "And you think that's me?" "I know it is," David said. "I saw it firsthand. The salary is $60,000 a year to start, with benefits and college tuition assistance." Maya's knees felt weak. $60,000. That was more than double what she made now. She could help her grandmother. She could go to school. She could actually breathe. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you offer me this?" "Because you're exactly what we need," David said simply. "And because you deserve a chance. You've been working yourself to death for scraps when you have so much to offer the world. I don't have any experience. I'm just a waitress. You have more experience than anyone I could hire from a fancy university," David said. "You know what it's like to go without. You know what people really need. That's worth more than any degree." Maya felt tears threatening again. "I don't understand. This doesn't make sense." David smiled, and it was the same genuine smile she'd seen in her apartment. "You helped me when you had nothing to gain from it. Let me return the favor. Not because I pity you, but because I believe in you. Maya looked at this man, this CEO who'd slept on her couch and washed her dishes, who'd seen her at her most vulnerable and hadn't judged her. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "Of course," David said. He handed her a folder. "All the details are in here. Take your time, but Maya, you deserve good things. Stop punishing yourself for wanting them." That night, Maya sat on her couch with the folder in her lap unopened. Through her thin walls, she could hear her neighbor's baby crying, someone's television too loud, the sound of the city that never stopped. She thought about her grandmother, about her dreams of helping people, about working herself into the ground for barely enough to survive. Then she thought about Helen's words. Who helps the helpers? Maybe it was okay to accept help. Maybe it wasn't weakness. Maybe it was just being human. Maya opened the folder and started to read, and for the first time in years she let herself hope. Maya stared at the acceptance email for what felt like the 100th time. She'd sent her response to David 3 days ago, and now it was official. She was going to be the Director of Community Impact at Patterson Industries. Starting salary $60,000. Full benefits. Tuition coverage for college courses. It still didn't feel real. Her manager at the restaurant had been furious when she gave her 2 weeks' notice. He'd called her ungrateful, said she was making a mistake, that fancy jobs like that never worked out for people like her. Maya had just smiled politely and kept cleaning tables. His words couldn't touch her anymore. Now, sitting in the lobby of Patterson Industries on her first day, Maya felt the nerves creeping in. The building was glass and steel, all modern and expensive looking. Everyone walking past wore designer clothes and carried laptops that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to. She looked down at her outfit. She'd bought it at a thrift store, the nicest clothes she could afford. A simple black blazer and gray pants. They were clean and pressed, but next to everyone else she felt like a kid playing dress-up. Maya? She looked up to see a woman in her 40s, stylish and put together, smiling warmly at her. "I'm Rebecca, head of HR. Welcome to Patterson Industries. Ready for your first day?" Maya stood, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "As ready as I'll ever be," Rebecca laughed. "That's the spirit. Come on, I'll show you to your office." Office. Maya had an office. The word still felt foreign. They took the elevator to the 12th floor. Rebecca talked the whole way, explaining the layout of the building, pointing out the cafeteria, the gym, the relaxation rooms. Maya tried to absorb it all, but her head was spinning. "Here we are," Rebecca said, opening a door. "Your space." Maya stepped inside and her breath caught. It wasn't huge, but it had a window with a view of the city. A real desk, a comfortable chair, a bookshelf, and a small couch. There was even a plant in the corner. "Is this really mine?" Maya asked softly. "All yours," Rebecca confirmed. "Computer will be set up this afternoon. David wants to meet with you at 10 to go over the program details. Until then, I'll help you get settled and introduce you to the team." The morning passed in a blur of names and faces. Everyone was friendly, welcoming. A few people mentioned they'd heard great things about Maya from David. She wasn't sure how to respond to that. At 10 sharp, Rebecca walked her to David's office on the top floor. Maya's heart hammered in her chest. She hadn't seen him since the park, since she'd accepted the job. "Come in," David called after Rebecca knocked. The office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. But what surprised Maya was how normal it looked. There were photos on the desk, including one of Helen, stacks of papers, a coffee mug with a chip in it. It looked like a workspace, not a showpiece. David stood up when he saw her, smiling. He looked different in his element, more confident somehow. But his eyes were the same, kind and genuine. "Maya, it's good to see you." "Hi," she said, suddenly feeling shy. "Please sit." David gestured to the chairs across from his desk. "How's your first morning been?" "Overwhelming," Maya admitted. "But good. Everyone's been really nice." "Good, that's good." David sat down, and for a moment he looked almost nervous. "Listen, I want to make something clear from the start. You're not here because I feel sorry for you. You're here because you're the right person for this job. You have insights and experiences that no one else on my staff has. This program needs you." Maya nodded, feeling some of the tension leave her shoulders. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." Now David pulled out a folder. "Let me tell you about what we're building. The Community Impact Initiative. The goal is to identify individuals and families who are struggling but have potential. People who just need a chance, a leg up to change their lives completely." As David explained the program, Maya felt excitement building in her chest. This was it. This was exactly what she'd always dreamed of doing. Helping people the way she'd wished someone had helped her. We have a budget of $5 million to start, David continued. Your job is to decide how to use it. Create programs, fund scholarships, provide resources. Whatever you think will make the biggest difference. $5 million? Maya's voice came out as a squeak. David smiled. Is that not enough? We can increase it if needed. Maya laughed, slightly hysterical. I've never had more than $300 in my bank account at one time. And you're giving me $5 million to manage? I'm giving you the resources to change lives, David corrected. That's what you're good at. You just didn't have the means before. Now you do. Over the next hour, they discussed ideas. Maya talked about scholarship programs that covered more than just tuition, living expenses, food, transportation. The things that actually kept poor kids from finishing school. She talked about emergency funds for families facing eviction, about job training programs that paid people while they learned new skills, because no one could afford to go weeks without income while training. David listened to everything, taking notes, asking questions. He never once made her feel stupid or naive. He treated her ideas like they were valuable. Like she was valuable. This is exactly what I was hoping for, David said finally. Fresh perspective. Real understanding of what people actually need. When do I start? Maya asked. You already have, David said with a grin. I want a proposal from you by the end of the week. Nothing formal. Just your ideas on paper. We'll refine from there. As Maya stood to leave, David called out, Maya, thank you. For what? For taking a chance on this. On me. On yourself, Maya smiled. Thank you for seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself. That evening, Maya called her grandmother. She'd already told her about the new job, but hearing the pride in her grandmother's voice made it all feel real. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart, her grandmother said, her voice thick with emotion. Your parents would be proud too. I wish they could see this, Maya said quietly. They can, her grandmother insisted. I believe that. And Maya, I got some news from the doctor today. The new treatment is working. Really working. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Grandma, that's amazing. Seems like things are finally turning around for both of us, her grandmother said. You just had to believe and keep pushing forward. After they hung up, Maya stood at the window of her tiny apartment. She'd found a new place, nothing fancy, but cleaner and safer than this one. She'd move next month. Everything was changing so fast. A month ago, she'd been barely surviving, working herself to exhaustion just to stay afloat. Now she had a career, a future, hope. Her phone buzzed. A text from Helen. David told me about your first day. I knew you'd be perfect for this. Lunch this weekend. I want to hear everything. Maya smiled and typed back. I'd love that. She spent the rest of the evening working on her proposal, ideas flowing faster than she could type them. For every program she designed, she thought about the Maya from a month ago. What would have helped her? What would have changed everything? Around midnight, there was a knock on her door. Maya frowned. Who would be here this late? She looked through the peephole and saw David standing in the hallway looking uncomfortable. She opened the door. David, what are you doing here? I'm sorry for just showing up, he said quickly. But I couldn't stop thinking about something and I needed to say it in person. Okay, Maya said slowly. Come in? David stepped inside and Maya suddenly saw her apartment through his eyes again. The shabby furniture, the water stain on the ceiling, the gap under the door that let in cold air. What did you need to say? Maya asked. David took a breath. That day in your apartment when you let us stay, you changed my life. You reminded me what really matters. And I know this job is professional, I know there are boundaries, but I need you to know that I value you, not just as an employee, but as a person, as someone who made me want to be better. Maya felt her heart skip. David, you don't have to say anything, he interrupted. I just needed you to know that this isn't just business for me. Your success matters to me personally, and if you ever need anything at all, I'm here. Not as your boss, as your friend. The word hung between them, meaning both everything and nothing at all. Thank you, Maya said softly. That means a lot. More than you know. David nodded, looking relieved. I'll let you get back to work. See you tomorrow? See you tomorrow. After he left, Maya leaned against the closed door, her mind racing. Something had shifted tonight. Something she couldn't quite name yet. But whatever it was, it felt like the beginning of something important. Something that might change everything all over again. 6 months had passed since Maya's first day at Patterson Industries. Sometimes she still couldn't believe this was her life. She stood in front of the conference room, presenting the results of the Community Impact Initiative to the board of directors. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. She'd learned to speak with confidence, to own her space in rooms full of powerful people. In our first 6 months, we've provided emergency housing assistance to 240 families, Maya explained, clicking through her presentation. We've funded full scholarships for 80 students, including living expenses and mentorship programs. And we've placed 150 people in job training programs that resulted in an 87% employment rate. The board members nodded, impressed. Maya caught David's eye. He was sitting at the back of the room, and the pride on his face made her heart warm. But numbers only tell part of the story, Maya continued. Let me tell you about Jessica, single mother of 2 about to be evicted. We paid her back rent and connected her with job training. She's now a certified welder making twice what she made before. Or Thomas, a veteran who'd been homeless for 3 years. We got him into housing and mental health services. He just got his first apartment. Maya paused, looking around the room. These aren't charity cases. These are people who just needed someone to believe in them, to give them a real chance. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. The board approved expanding the program budget to $10 million for the next year. As everyone filed out, David approached her. That was incredible, Maya. You've exceeded every expectation. We've exceeded every expectation, Maya corrected. This is a team effort. Maybe, David said with a smile, but you're the heart of it. Listen, there's something I want to show you. Do you have time this afternoon? Maya checked her phone. I have a meeting at 3, but I'm free until then. Perfect. Come with me. They drove across the city to a neighborhood Maya knew well. It was the area where she'd lived, where she'd struggled. David pulled up in front of an old warehouse that was under renovation. What is this? Maya asked as they got out of the car. Your idea, David said, leading her to the entrance. Remember when you talked about creating a community center, a place where people could access all our programs in one location? Job training, financial counseling, childcare, medical services, everything under one roof. Maya nodded. She'd proposed it months ago, but she'd thought it was too ambitious. David opened the door. Inside, construction workers were busy transforming the space. Maya could see the layout taking shape. Computer labs, classrooms, a childcare area, private counseling rooms, even a small medical clinic, David. Maya breathed. This is amazing. We're calling it the Maya Chen Community Center, David said quietly. Maya spun around to face him. What? No, you can't name it after me. Why not? It's your vision. Your heart poured into every detail of this place. But I didn't pay for it. I didn't build it, David stepped closer. Maya, when are you going to understand? Money can build buildings, but it takes someone special to build hope. That's what you do. You give people hope. Tears filled Maya's eyes. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, David said softly. Just keep being you. Keep changing lives. They stood there for a moment, surrounded by the sound of construction, the promise of what this place would become. There's something else, David said, his voice suddenly nervous. Something I've been wanting to talk to you about for months, but the timing never felt right. Maya's heart started beating faster. Okay. That night in your apartment, when you opened your door to strangers, you changed everything for me. I told myself I was just grateful, that I admired your character, that I wanted to help you succeed because you deserved it. He paused. All of that is true, but it's not the whole truth. David, let me finish, he said gently. Maya, somewhere along the way, admiration became something more. You're brilliant, compassionate, funny, real. You see through all the noise and get to what actually matters. And I've fallen for you completely. Maya's breath caught. She'd suspected, hoped, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel different. I know this is complicated, David continued. I'm your boss. There are power dynamics and professional boundaries. If you don't feel the same way, nothing changes. Your job is yours regardless. I just couldn't keep pretending that I see you only as a colleague. Maya looked at this man who'd gone from a stranger on her doorstep to someone who understood her better than anyone else, who'd given her not just a job but a purpose, who looked at her like she hung the moon. I've been terrified to admit this, Maya said slowly, because everything is so good right now and I didn't want to mess it up. But David, I feel it too. I have for months. The smile that spread across David's face was like sunrise. Yeah, Maya laughed, tears spilling over. You're kind and genuine, and you actually care about making the world better. How could I not fall for you?" David reached out, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. "So what do we do about it?" "I don't know," Maya admitted. "But we'll figure it out. Together." "Together," David repeated, and the word felt like a promise. 3 months later, Maya stood in the finished community center at the grand opening. The place was packed with people, families from the neighborhood, staff members, local politicians, and media. Helen stood beside her, beaming with pride. "I knew from the moment I met you that you were special," she said, squeezing Maya's hand. "Look what you've built." "What we've built," Maya corrected, gesturing to the crowd. "This belongs to everyone here." Her grandmother had flown in for the occasion, healthy and glowing. She stood talking with some of the scholarship recipients, sharing stories and encouragement. Seeing her grandmother here, in this space that represented everything Maya had worked for, made everything feel complete. David took the stage to speak. But before he started his prepared remarks, he looked directly at Maya. "Before we officially open this center, I want to say something personal. A year ago, I was lost. I'd built a successful company, but I'd lost sight of why it mattered. Then I met someone who reminded me what real wealth looks like. Not money in a bank account, but kindness in action. Compassion without conditions. Hope shared freely." He paused, emotion clear in his voice. Maya Chen could have walked past me and my mother that rainy night. She had every reason to, but she didn't. She opened her home, shared her last meal, and showed more generosity in one evening than I'd seen in years. She saved us in ways that have nothing to do with shelter from a storm. Maya felt tears streaming down her face as David continued. "This center bears her name because she embodies everything it stands for. Second chances, unconditional support, the belief that everyone deserves dignity and opportunity." "Maya, will you come up here?" Maya walked to the stage on shaking legs. David took her hand as she reached him. "I have one more announcement," David said to the crowd. Effective immediately. Maya Chen is being promoted to Vice President of Social Impact for Patterson Industries. She'll be expanding this program nationally, bringing hope and resources to communities across the country. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya was speechless. David leaned close, whispering so only she could hear. "You've changed my world. Now let's change the world together." As Maya looked out at the sea of faces, at the center that would help thousands of people, at her grandmother's proud tears and Helen's loving smile, she thought about that rainy Tuesday evening a year ago, how exhausted she'd been, how close to giving up. She thought about the choice she'd made to open her door, to help strangers, to be kind even when she had nothing to spare. That one choice had changed everything. Later that evening, after the crowds had dispersed and the center had closed, Maya and David stood alone in the main hall. The lights of the city twinkled through the windows. "Are you happy?" David asked, pulling her close. Maya thought about her apartment, no longer shabby but comfortable, about her grandmother's health, about the degree she was working toward, about the lives being changed every day through their programs, about the man standing beside her who saw her, really saw her, and loved what he found. "I'm more than happy," Maya said. "I'm home," David kissed her forehead. "So am I." They stood there together, surrounded by the promise of tomorrow, the evidence of today, and the memory of one rainy night when a poor girl let strangers stay, unaware that those strangers would help her discover she'd been rich all along, rich in spirit, in courage, in love. And that was the kind of wealth that truly changed everything, the kind that grew when you gave it away, the kind that transformed not just one life, but hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions, all because someone chose kindness when it would have been easier to choose fear. All because someone believed that helping others wasn't a transaction, but a calling. Maya Chen had answered that calling, and in doing so she'd found everything she'd been searching for. Purpose, family, love, and the power to make real, lasting change in the world. The journey from that tiny apartment to this moment had been unexpected, but every step had been worth it. Every struggle had led to strength. Every act of kindness had multiplied into something beautiful. And this was only the beginning.